The road had been there longer than anyone living could remember. No one had built it. At least, no one claimed to have. It crossed the northern rise, bent between two low hills, and disappeared into the timber, where the ground began its long descent toward the valley. Men used it because their fathers had used it. Their fathers had used it because others had walked there before them. That was reason enough. Snow had fallen during the night. Not deeply. Enough to soften the stones beneath the traveler's boots and hide the old wheel scars pressed into the earth. He knew they were there. He did not need to see them. He had walked this road in spring mud. He had walked it beneath summer rain. He had crossed it once in darkness with one hand against a horse too tired to carry him. Nothing about it required remembering. His feet already knew. The morning was cold. The kind of cold that did not bite. It simply remained. His breath moved white before him. The trees stood without wind. Somewhere beneath the snow, water continued beneath ice. He walked. The road climbed. At the top of the rise, he stopped long enough to look back. Nothing followed. Nothing had. Below him, the land stretched pale beneath the winter sky. For a moment, he could see almost the whole distance he had crossed. Then he turned north again and continued. Far ahead, iron struck iron. One blow.
Nothing more.
The traveler lifted his head. There were steadings beyond the timber, a hunting shelter farther east. Perhaps someone had set a small forge before the weather worsened. He listened.
Nothing followed.
So he walked on. The road narrowed where stone pushed through the snow. He stepped around it without looking down. He had stepped around the same stone for years.
Far ahead,
Iron struck iron again.
the traveler kept walking.
And the road continued north. And the road continued north. The traveler followed it into the timber. Here, the snow lay differently. Branches held what the open ground could not, and beneath them the earth showed through in narrow strips of brown and black. His boots found the old path easily. He walked without hurry. The sound of iron had already left his thoughts. There were other things to notice. A hare had crossed some time before dawn. Farther on, something heavier had moved between the trees and disappeared east.
Deer, perhaps. He did not stop to examine the tracks.
He knew this country.
There was little here that required explanation.
Far ahead,
Iron struck iron.
the traveler stopped,
Not because the sound frightened him.
because it was no louder.
He looked through the trees.
Nothing.
He listened for another blow.
None came. The traveler considered the distance.
Sound traveled strangely in winter.
Cold air could carry an axe farther than expected. A voice could cross a frozen valley and seem close enough to answer.
He had known men to mistake one ridge for another by sound alone.
There was nothing unusual in that.
So he continued.
The timber thickened, the road descended. For a time he could see only the trees immediately before him and the narrow passage between them. He walked until the ground leveled again.
Then farther.
And farther still.
Far ahead.
Iron struck iron.
He stopped.
This time, he did not look toward the trees.
He looked back.
The rise he had crossed that morning was no longer visible.
Neither was the open country beyond it.
He had covered enough ground that any forge ahead should have drawn nearer.
Any hammer should have grown louder.
He stood quietly.
The forest gave him nothing.
No smoke moved between the branches.
No second hammer answered.
No voices.
No dogs.
Only the road.
The traveler turned north again.
He adjusted the strap across his shoulder.
And continued walking.
But now,
he listened.
Now that he was listening, the traveler found himself waiting for the hammer. It did not come. He walked on. The timber eventually thinned, and through the trees he saw the shallow stream that crossed beneath the road. He knew this place well. In spring, the water spread beyond its banks and covered the stones. In summer, a man could cross without wetting the tops of his boots. Now there was only ice, snow, and a narrow line of dark water moving beneath them. The traveler stepped down from the road. He crouched beside the stream and rested one hand against the ice. Water moved underneath. He could hear it. He remained there for a while. Then he stood and looked back through the trees. The northern rise was far behind him now. He had walked this stretch of road often enough to know the distance. More than an hour separated the rise from the stream when the ground was good. Longer in snow. He thought again of the hammer. If a forge stood somewhere ahead, he should have been much nearer to it by now. He listened. The stream moved beneath the ice. A branch shifted somewhere in the timber. Nothing else. The traveler crossed. On the opposite bank, he brushed snow from his hands and returned to the road. He had taken only a few steps when iron struck iron somewhere ahead. He stopped. The sound was neither louder nor softer than before. It seemed no nearer than it had from the northern rise. The traveler stood quietly for a moment. He knew how far he had walked. That was the part he could not explain. Eventually, he continued north. For the next stretch of road, the hammer did not sound again. But he no longer forgot about it.
The road carried him farther into the afternoon. The hammer remained silent. For a time, the traveler began to wonder whether he would hear it again. He almost hoped he would. Not because he wanted the sound, because silence left him with nothing to measure. The road continued through the timber until it reached a place where several old pines had fallen years before. Their roots had pulled stones from the earth and left shallow hollows that filled with snow each winter. The traveler stopped there to eat. He sat against one of the fallen trunks and opened the small bundle he carried beneath his cloak. Bread, a little dried meat, nothing that required a fire. He ate slowly. The forest remained still. When he finished, he wrapped what remained and returned it to his pack. Then iron struck iron. The traveler looked up. This time he did not simply listen. He studied the trees ahead of him. The road continued north. The sound did not seem to come from the road. It came from somewhere deeper within the timber. He waited. Another blow did not follow. The traveler remained beside the fallen pine. There were reasons not to leave the path. Snow concealed broken ground. A man could lose an hour walking around a ravine he had not known was there. A twisted ankle this far from shelter could become more dangerous than any storm. He knew all of this. He also knew there had to be a hammer. And where there was a hammer, there had to be a hand holding it. Perhaps a hunting camp stood beyond the trees. Perhaps someone had built a shelter he did not know. Perhaps the road had made the sound difficult to place. Any of those explanations would do. He stood. The traveler tightened the strap across his shoulder. Then he looked north along the road he knew. For years, his feet had followed it without thought. He turned toward the timber. For a moment, he remained where he was. Then he stepped off the road. Snow reached higher between the trees. His pace slowed. Behind him, the path remained visible. He moved between the pines, choosing his footing carefully. 20 paces, then more. When he looked back again, the road could still be seen through the trunks. He continued. The forest grew quieter as he went. Not unnaturally quiet, only farther from the road. The traveler walked toward the place where he believed the hammer must be. For the first time that day, his feet did not know the way. Away from the road, walking became slower. Snow gathered deeply where the trees allowed it and thinned beneath the oldest pines. The traveler chose his steps carefully. He had no trail to follow now. Only the place from which he believed the hammer had sounded. For a while, that seemed enough. The forest was not unfamiliar country. He knew how to move through timber. He knew which ground would hold beneath snow and which hollows were better walked around. He knew how easily a man could convince himself he was traveling straight. So he looked back often. At first, he could still see the road between the trunks. Then only pieces of it, then none at all. He continued. After some time, he found the stump. It stood in a small opening between the pines. The tree had not fallen. It had been cut. The traveler stopped beside it. For the first time since leaving the road, he smiled. Someone had worked here. He brushed snow from the top of the stump. The cut beneath it was clean. He could see where the blade had entered the wood again and again. Nearby lay several pieces of split timber, almost completely covered by snow. The traveler uncovered one with his boot, then another. He looked around the clearing. There was no shelter, no stacked wood, no sled. But those things could have been elsewhere. A man did not need to build his home beside every tree he cut. The traveler rested one hand on the stump. The wood beneath his palm was dark. He rubbed his thumb across it. Something about the cut bothered him. He looked more closely. The surface was smooth, too smooth for a tree cut recently. The edges had softened. Weather had worked into the grain. The traveler scraped at the wood with one fingernail. It was dry beneath the snow. He stood again. The pieces scattered around the clearing were gray where they showed through the white. One had sunk partly into the earth. Another had moss along its underside. No one had cut this tree today. No one had cut it this winter. The traveler looked between the pines. He had wanted evidence that someone was here. He had found evidence that someone had been. There was a difference. He remained in the clearing a little longer. Then, somewhere beyond it, iron struck iron. The traveler lifted his head. The sound was still ahead. He removed his hand from the old stump and walked toward it.
Beyond the clearing, the ground began to rise. The traveler moved slowly between the trees. He no longer had the road behind him to judge his direction, so he chose a tall pine ahead and walked toward it. When he reached it, he chose another.
In this way he continued.
The old stump disappeared behind him. For some time, there was nothing unusual in the forest. Then he smelled smoke. The traveler stopped. He breathed again.
Wood smoke.
Faint, but unmistakable. For the first time since leaving the road, the answer seemed simple.
Someone was here.
Perhaps the stump had belonged to them after all. Perhaps the split timber had merely been left from an older cutting. A shelter could be close.
A fire.
A smith.
The traveler moved on.
The smell strengthened.
Soon he could distinguish pine in it.
Resin. Dry wood burning hot.
He began looking between the trees for a roof.
There was none.
He continued uphill.
Then he saw the smoke.
It rested between the pines ahead of him.
Thin, gray, almost blue where the winter light passed through it.
The traveler smiled.
He called out.
No one answered.
He waited.
Then called again.
Still nothing. He walked toward the smoke. After several steps, he slowed.
There was something strange about it.
Smoke rose.
Everyone knew that.
It twisted above a hearth.
It climbed through branches.
Wind could bend it, flatten it, carry it across a field.
But this smoke did none of those things.
It hung between the trees at the height of his chest.
The traveler watched it.
There was almost no wind. Still, it should have moved.
He approached carefully.
The smell of burning wood grew stronger.
He expected warmth.
There was none. He stepped into the smoke.
It passed around his coat and across his face.
His eyes did not sting.
He breathed.
There was the scent of pine.
There was ash.
There was fire.
But there was no heat.
The traveler came through the other side.
He turned. The smoke remained among the trees behind him.
He looked at the snow beneath it.
White,
Untouched,
no hearth,
no coals,
no blackened earth.
nothing had burned there.
The traveler stood looking at the place where the fire should have been.
Then, somewhere beyond the smoke,
Iron struck iron.
he did not follow immediately.
The traveler remained beside the smoke. He did not know how long. Long enough for the hammer's last blow to disappear completely. Long enough to hear the forest again. A branch settling beneath snow. Water somewhere beneath the frozen ground. His own breathing. He looked toward the place where the hammer had sounded. Then back at the smoke. There was no reason to continue. Not now. Whatever waited ahead would still be there after he found the road. He could return with another man. Perhaps two. He could mark the place and come again when the weather was clearer. Those were sensible thoughts. The traveler trusted sensible thoughts. He turned back. His own tracks were easy to find. Two lines of footprints led away through the snow, disturbed where his coat had brushed low branches. He followed them. For the first time since leaving the road, he felt relieved. There was nothing to decide. His own feet had already shown him the way. He passed the tall pine he remembered. Then another. The ground descended. After a while, he began looking through the trees for the clearing. He expected to see the old stump. He did not. The traveler continued along his tracks. They were unmistakably his. The same worn edge on the left heel. The same uneven depth where his right foot pressed harder into the snow. He followed them farther. The clearing should have been close. It was not. He stopped. His tracks continued ahead. The traveler looked behind him. A long trail of footprints disappeared between the trees. He looked forward again. More footprints. His footprints. He crouched beside one. The impression was fresh.
Snow still held the shape of the leather. He placed his boot beside it.
The size matched.
The traveler stood.
He continued.
There was no reason not to.
Tracks did not forget where they had been.
Soon the trees opened slightly.
The traveler slowed.
For a moment he thought he had found the clearing.
Then he recognized the smoke.
Thin,
Gray,
waiting.
between the pines.
He had returned to the place he had just left.
The traveler looked down,
His tracks entered the smoke.
and another set of his tracks came out.
He stood very still.
This time, when iron struck iron,
Somewhere beyond the trees.
he did not look toward it.
The traveler remained where he was. His footprints lay before him. One trail entering the smoke, another leaving it. He studied them until there was nothing more to learn. Then he stopped trying. He brushed the snow from a fallen branch and sat. The hammer could wait. So could he. For several minutes, nothing happened. The traveler loosened the strap across his shoulder. He took out what remained of his bread and ate a small piece. It had gone hard in the cold.
He chewed slowly. The smoke remained between the trees. He watched it for a while. Then he stopped watching that too. There were things a man could understand. There were things he could not. Standing in the snow until one became the other would change neither. He finished the bread. He drank a little water. Then he rested his hands on his knees. The forest was quiet.
Not empty.
Quiet. Somewhere above him, snow slipped from a branch. A small bird moved through the pine. Farther away, wood cracked in the cold. The traveler listened to each sound and allowed it to be what it was. He did not listen for the hammer.
Time passed.
The light between the trees had begun to change. Afternoon was moving toward evening.
He would need shelter before dark.
That was a problem he understood.
He began considering what he carried.
A knife, flint, enough food for the night.
His cloak.
There was dry wood beneath the oldest pines if he dug for it.
He could make a fire.
He could sleep here if he had to. The thought steadied him. Then iron struck iron. The traveler closed his eyes.
He did not rise.
He did not look toward the sound.
He simply listened as it faded.
A long while passed. Then iron struck iron again. The traveler opened his eyes. This blow had not come from farther away, nor had it come closer.
For the first time, he understood that distance might be the wrong thing to measure.
He looked at the smoke, then at his footprints, then into the forest beyond them.
The hammer sounded a third time.
The traveler remained seated.
And for the first time,
he did not ask where it was.
He wondered what it was marking.
The traveler remained seated beside the fallen branch. He had stopped asking where the hammer was. Instead, he began listening for when it came. For a while, it did not. The forest settled around him. The smoke remained among the trees and the afternoon light continued slowly fading. Then iron struck iron. The traveler listened until the sound disappeared. He waited. Eventually another blow came. There was no rhythm between them, no pattern he could count. A smith working iron would strike more than once. There would be movement between the blows. The iron would be turned, examined, returned to the fire, and struck again. This was different. One blow came, and then the forest was left alone. The traveler thought back over the day. He remembered hearing the hammer near the stream after he had already traveled farther than the sound seemed to allow. He remembered the fallen pines and his decision to leave the road. He remembered the old stump when the evidence he had hoped was recent proved to be years old. And he remembered trying to follow his own tracks back only to arrive again beside the smoke. There might have been no connection between these things. A man alone for long enough could find patterns almost anywhere. The traveler knew this and did not trust the thought simply because it offered an answer. So he waited. The hammer remained silent. The light continued to fade. Before long, finding shelter would matter more than understanding anything that had happened that day. That was something he could deal with. He had a knife and flint. There was food enough for the night, and beneath the older pines he could find wood protected from the snow. He decided he would remain here until morning. When iron struck iron again, the traveler stayed seated and listened until the sound faded.
Perhaps distance had never been what the blows measured. Perhaps they accompany something else, a crossing, a discovery, a decision. He could not know that yet. He only knew that another blow had come when he chose to stay. The traveler looked into the darkening forest. There would be time enough to think about the hammer. For now, he needed a fire.
The traveler chose a place beneath 3 old pines where the snow was shallow and the ground reasonably dry. Night would come soon, and whatever questions remained could wait until morning. He set down his pack and began preparing a place for the night. First he cleared the snow with his boots. Beneath it he found old needles, dark earth, and pieces of bark protected by the branches above. He gathered what was dry. Small pieces first, then twigs, followed by branches thick enough to last once the fire had taken hold. There was comfort in knowing what needed to be done. A fire required dry wood, a spark, and patience. The traveler removed his knife and shaved thin curls from a piece of pine. The scent of fresh wood reached him, clean and sharp and different from the strange smoke among the trees. He arranged the shavings beneath the smallest twigs and took out his flint. The first spark disappeared, the second caught briefly and died. He adjusted the tinder and tried again. A small flame appeared. The traveler bent close and gave it breath until the flame moved through the shavings and reached the twigs. He added wood slowly, and before long the fire could hold itself. Smoke rose between the branches, twisting once in the cold air before continuing upward. The traveler watched it climb. Then he held his hands toward the flame and felt heat against his palms. For the first time in several hours, something behaved exactly as he expected. He sat beside the fire while the remaining daylight faded through the trees. The traveler ate what remained of his dried meat and warmed a little water. He knew the other smoke was still somewhere behind him, but he did not need to look at it. For a while he listened only to the fire. Wood settled in the flames, resin hissed, a branch cracked and scattered sparks into the air. The traveler added another piece of wood. Sometime later, the hammer sounded in the distance. He continued tending the fire. Another blow came after a while. The traveler looked into the flames and considered what he had believed earlier. He had wondered whether the hammer accompanied moments of change, yet nothing had changed between those 2 blows. Perhaps he had been wrong. The possibility reassured him more than he expected. There was no need to understand the hammer tonight. Darkness had settled among the trees, his fire was warm, and morning would come soon enough. The traveler added another branch and watched the flame take hold. For tonight, he was staying where he was.
Night settled completely over the forest. Beyond the reach of the fire, the trees had disappeared into darkness. The traveler could still see the nearest trunks when the flames rose, but everything beyond them had become shape and shadow. He added another branch. The fire accepted it slowly. For a while, He watched the bark darken before a thin line of flame moved along its edge. There was nothing else he needed to do. His shelter was poor, but enough. His cloak was dry. The fire was steady. Morning would come. The traveler rested against the trunk of one of the old pines and listened. At first he listened without knowing that he was doing it. The fire cracked softly. Wind moved somewhere high above him, touching branches that remained still nearer the ground. Once, something small crossed the snow beyond the light. He heard it pause, then continue into the trees. The traveler smiled to himself. The forest was still a forest. That thought stayed with him. He closed his eyes. Sometime later, he opened them again. The fire had burned lower. He shifted closer and placed another piece of wood across the coals. As the flames returned, he realized something. He had not heard the hammer. The traveler looked into the darkness. He tried to remember the last blow. It had been before night fully settled, perhaps much earlier. He could not be certain. He waited. Nothing came. The absence should have pleased him. Instead, he found himself listening more carefully. He knew how strange that was. All day he had wanted an explanation for the sound. Now that it had stopped, part of him wanted it back. Not because he missed it. Because while it sounded, he knew where his attention belonged. Silence gave him nothing. The traveler leaned his head against the pine. He waited a little longer. Still nothing. Eventually he stopped listening. The fire warmed one side of his face. His eyes became heavy. He pulled the cloak more tightly around himself and allowed them to close. For a time, he drifted near sleep. Then something woke him. The traveler opened his eyes. The fire was still burning. Nothing stood beyond it. He remained still and listened. No footsteps, no voice, no hammer. He could not say what had awakened him. Then he noticed the fire. The flames were leaning, not flickering with the wind, leaning steadily toward one side of the clearing. The traveler watched them. He held one hand above the fire. The air was still, yet every flame bent in the same direction, not toward the strange smoke, not toward the place where he believed the hammer had been. They leaned deeper into the forest. The traveler followed their direction with his eyes. There was nothing there that he could see. He remained beside the fire. He did not rise. After a while, the flames straightened. The traveler continued watching them. The hammer never sounded. Morning came quietly. The traveler woke to pale light between the trees and the remains of his fire glowing beneath a layer of ash. For several moments he stayed beneath his cloak. The forest looked different in daylight, smaller somehow. The darkness between the trees was gone, and with it much of what had seemed uncertain during the night. He sat up. Cold had settled into his shoulders. The traveler moved close to the coals and stirred them with a branch. A little red remained underneath. He added several pieces of dry wood and waited until a small flame returned. Then he warmed his hands. The hammer had not awakened him during the night. At least, he did not remember hearing it. He looked toward the place where the strange smoke had been. From where he sat, he could no longer see it. Then he remembered the flames before sleeping. Every flame of his fire had leaned in the same direction. The traveler looked across the clearing. In daylight, there was nothing unusual there. Pines, snow, a fallen branch. Beyond them, more trees. He almost laughed. A man could give great importance to small things after spending a night alone in unfamiliar country. Wind moved strangely between trees. Heat pulled air toward a fire. There were explanations for such things. The traveler ate a little food and drank from his water. He considered returning to the road that remained the sensible choice. But before leaving, he wanted to see what lay in the direction the flames had leaned. It would take only a short while. He could keep the camp behind him and turn back if he found nothing. The traveler fed another branch to the fire. Then he stood. He chose a tree beyond the clearing and walked toward it. This time he counted his steps, not because he expected anything strange, because he intended to return. 20 steps carried him beyond the nearest pines. At 40, he could still see his fire. At 60, only a thin line of smoke showed between the trunks. The ground began to descend. The traveler continued until he reached the bottom of a shallow hollow. There he stopped. Something crossed the snow ahead of him, a line. At first he thought it was a branch buried beneath the surface. He moved closer. It was not wood. The traveler crouched and brushed away the snow. Stone appeared beneath his glove. Another stone lay beside it, and another. He cleared more snow. The stones formed a straight edge through the forest floor. The traveler stood and followed it with his eyes. It continued in both directions beneath the snow. He uncovered another section, then another. Someone had placed these stones here, not scattered them, placed them. The traveler followed the line a short distance until it turned. Another line continued away from it. A corner. He looked back toward his camp. Its smoke could still be seen above the trees. Then he looked at the stones again. They were not a road. They were not a boundary marker. They were the bottom course of a wall. Whatever had once stood here was gone. Only its shape remained beneath the snow. The traveler walked slowly along the foundation. It was larger than a hunting shelter, much larger. Near the far end, he found an opening where the stones stopped and began again. A doorway. He stood inside it. Beyond the doorway was nothing but forest. The traveler remained there for a while, imagining walls where there were none. A roof, a room, people, fire. Then iron struck iron. The sound came once. The traveler listened. It was no louder than yesterday, no closer. But this time, standing among the buried stones, he noticed something he had never noticed before. The hammer had an echo. The traveler remained inside the old doorway. He waited for another blow. None came. Perhaps he had mistaken the sound. The forest could return a noise in unexpected ways. Stone, frozen ground, even the slope of the land could carry an echo farther than a man expected. He looked around the foundation. There was enough stone here to explain many things. The traveler stepped through the doorway and walked toward the center of what had once been the building. Snow covered most of the ground. Here and there, the tops of stone showed through. He tried to imagine the places it had been. The outer wall formed a long rectangle. Near one end, another line of buried stone divided the space. Perhaps there had been 2 rooms, perhaps more. He walked slowly along the foundation until he reached the far wall. Then he waited again. The hammer remained silent. The traveler looked toward the forest. He almost called out. Instead, he listened. Nothing answered. After a while, he began clearing snow from one of the interior stones. There was no particular reason to do it. He simply wanted to see what was beneath his feet. The stone was broad and flat. Another lay beside it. Then another. Not part of the wall. A floor. The traveler cleared a larger patch. His glove struck something harder than stone. He stopped. Half buried between 2 slabs was a piece of iron. The traveler worked it loose. It was small enough to fit in his palm. Dark with age, one end was narrow. The other widened and flattened. He turned it over. At first he thought it was broken from a tool. Then he recognized the shape, a wedge, the kind used to split wood. He rubbed away the dirt with his thumb. The iron was heavily weathered, but one edge carried an old mark. 3 short lines, nothing more. The traveler studied them. He did not recognize them. He slipped the wedge into his coat and stood. Iron struck iron. This time he was ready for it. He listened. The blow faded. Then came the second sound. Quieter, shorter. The same strike returning to him. The traveler looked toward the buried walls. He waited. The hammer sounded again. And again, the echo followed. He moved several steps outside the foundation. The next blow came sometime later. No echo. The traveler looked back. He returned through the old doorway. He waited. Iron struck iron. A moment later, the old building answered. The traveler stood among the buried stones and listened until the echo disappeared. Whatever had once stood here was gone. But the sound did not seem to know that. The traveler remained among the stones. The iron wedge felt heavy in his coat. Not because of its weight, because it belonged here. Of that much he was becoming certain. He returned to the place where he had found it and cleared more snow from the floor. The work was slow. Snow had filled every space between the stones, and beneath it lay frozen needles, soil, and years of fallen leaves. The traveler used a branch to loosen what he could. Gradually, more of the old floor appeared. Near the wall, several stones were darkened. He rubbed one with his glove. The color remained. Another beside it carried the same stain. Black, not dirt, soot. The traveler looked toward the opening he had taken for a doorway, then around the room. A fire had burned here once. Perhaps many fires. He uncovered another stone. Then another. The blackening continued. He followed it until the pattern widened into a broad patch near the center of the structure. The traveler crouched. This had not been a small hearth for warming a room. The stones had been exposed to far greater heat. He reached into his coat and removed the wedge. For a moment he held it above the blackened floor. A piece of iron, a place shaped by fire. And somewhere beyond the trees, the sound of a hammer. The conclusion was tempting, too tempting. The traveler smiled slightly. A man who wanted an answer badly enough could make one from almost anything. He placed the wedge back inside his coat. Then he noticed something near the edge of the burned stones. A shallow depression ran across the floor. He cleared it with his glove. Inside were small black pieces mixed with the frozen earth. The traveler picked one up. Charcoal. Another piece lay beside it. Then several more. He continued clearing. Something metallic caught the morning light. He lifted it from the dirt. A thin curl of iron rested in his palm. Then he found another, and another. Small pieces, waste from working metal. The traveler sat back on his heels. Whatever else this place had been, iron had been worked here. That much no longer required imagination. He looked through the missing wall towards the forest. The hammer remained silent. The traveler returned his attention to the floor. Near the far end of the burned stones, the snow had settled into a narrow hollow. He brushed it away. Beneath it was a rectangular block of stone. Its upper surface was worn smooth. One side had cracked long ago. The traveler ran his hand across it. There were marks on the surface. Not letters, not decoration, scars, small dents laid over one another, until the stone itself had been changed by them. The traveler understood. Something had rested here. Something struck again and again for years. An anvil, perhaps, or a block beneath one. He stood slowly. The building had been a forge. The traveler looked around differently now. The doorway, the blackened floor, the charcoal, the pieces of worked iron, the old wedge in his coat. He could almost arrange the missing room around them. Almost. Then the hammer sounded. Iron struck iron. The traveler listened for the echo. It came, but underneath it was another sound. So faint that at first he thought he had imagined it. The traveler held his breath. Nothing followed. He waited. Eventually the hammer struck again. The echo returned. And beneath it, for only a moment, came the sound of fire. The traveler waited for the sound of fire to return. The hammer struck twice more. Each time the old forge answered with its impossible echo. But there was no fire, only the hammer. The traveler began to wonder whether he had imagined the other sound. He remained beside the worn stone for a while longer. Nothing changed. Eventually, he reached inside his coat and removed the iron wedge. 3 short lines remained visible along one edge. He rubbed his thumb across them. They had been cut deliberately. That much was clear, but they told him nothing. The traveler looked around the ruined forge. If the wedge had been used here, perhaps there were others. He returned to the place where he had found it and began searching more carefully. Snow and frozen earth filled the spaces between the floor stones. He cleared what he could. Most of what he found was ordinary. Charcoal, fragments of rusted iron, a nail bent nearly in half, a piece of metal too damaged to identify. Then, near the blackened stones, he found another wedge. This one was smaller. Its edge had broken away. The traveler cleaned it against his coat. There were marks on this one too. 2 short lines. He placed both pieces of iron in his palm. The first carried 3, the second carried 2. He searched again. It took longer this time. Near the worn stone, he found a third piece buried beneath frozen dirt. Not a wedge. A narrow length of iron, flattened at one end. The traveler turned it over. One short line had been cut into its side. He laid the 3 objects on the stone. 1 line, 2, 3. The traveler looked at them for a long time. Perhaps the marks were nothing more than a way of keeping track of tools. Perhaps they belonged to different men. Perhaps they measured size or weight. He could not know. But they had been made deliberately, and they belonged to the forge. The hammer sounded. Iron struck iron. The echo returned. Then came the fire. This time the traveler was certain. A low rush. The soft crack of burning wood. The faint hiss of something hot. He remained completely still. The sounds lasted only a few moments. Then they disappeared. The traveler looked at the 3 pieces of iron resting on the stone. He reached for the first, the wedge marked with 3 lines. As his fingers closed around it, the hammer struck again. The traveler stopped, he waited. Nothing followed. Slowly, he released the wedge. Then he picked up the piece marked with 1 line. Silence. He set it down. He tried the piece marked with 2, nothing. The traveler looked at the wedge with 3 marks. He reached for it again. Iron struck iron. This time the sound was different. Not louder, closer. The traveler pulled his hand away. The forest became quiet. For several moments he did not move. Then he picked up the wedge. The hammer struck once more. And beneath the blow came the sound of fire. The traveler held the old iron in his hand. For the first time since hearing the hammer on the road, he was no longer certain that the sound was somewhere ahead of him. He looked down at the wedge. Perhaps it had never been asking him to come closer. Perhaps it had been waiting for him to pick something up. The traveler remained beside the worn stone, with the old wedge in his hand. He waited for another blow, but the forests gave him nothing. After a while, he placed the wedge on the stone and stepped away from it. Still nothing. He walked outside the old foundation and waited there. The morning had grown bright as snow loosened from the higher branches where sunlight reached them, and somewhere beyond the hollow, a bird called between the trees. The traveler listened until he was certain the hammer would not sound. Then he returned to the forge. The 3 pieces of iron remained where he had left them. He picked up the wedge marked with 3 lines and carried it through the old doorway. Nothing happened. He walked farther from the foundation. Still nothing. The traveler stopped among the trees and looked at the iron in his hand. If the hammer responded to the wedge, it did not respond every time. That was useful to know. He returned to the forge and set the wedge beside the other pieces. For a moment, he considered leaving all 3 where he had found them. They belonged here. Whatever their purpose had been, the men who worked in this place had shaped them, used them, and marked them long before he was born. Taking one felt strangely like taking something from a grave. The traveler did not like the thought. He picked up the 3 marked wedge once more and examined it. There was nothing remarkable about it in daylight. Old iron, A worn edge, 3 simple cuts. He set it down. Then iron struck iron. The traveler looked toward the forest. The echo returned from the walls that were no longer standing. He waited for the sound of fire. It did not come. The traveler remained still until the echo faded. Then he stepped through the doorway. He had gone only a few paces when the hammer struck again. He stopped. For a moment, he considered returning. Instead, he continued toward his camp. Another blow came sometime later. The traveler kept walking. When he reached the shallow rise, he looked back. From there, the buried forge was almost impossible to distinguish from the surrounding forest. A few stones, uneven snow. Nothing that would have drawn the eye of a passing man. He thought of the wedge lying where he had left it. Then he continued uphill. His camp appeared between the trees. The fire had burned low but had not gone out. The traveler knelt beside it, moved the coals together, and added dry wood. A small flame returned. He warmed his hands and began preparing to leave. He packed what remained of his food, secured his knife and flint, and scattered the loose branches he had gathered but never burned. He intended to find the road before the day was gone. The hammer sounded again. The traveler continued fastening his pack. Another blow came while he covered the remains of his fire with snow. He listened, but he did not turn toward the forge. When the fire was out, he stood and pulled the pack across his shoulder. Only then did he notice the weight inside his coat. The traveler frowned. He reached beneath the cloth. His fingers closed around the cold iron. Slowly, he drew out the wedge. 3 short lines crossed its edge. The traveler stared at it. He had left it on the stone. He was certain of that. Behind him, somewhere beyond the trees, iron struck iron. The traveler did not move. He looked at the wedge in his hand. Then, for the first time, the hammer struck twice. The traveler stood beside the remains of his fire. The wedge rested in his hand. He turned it over once, then again. There was no mistake. 3 short lines crossed the edge. He remembered placing it on the worn stone inside the forge. He remembered walking away without it. Yet here it was. The traveler searched his coat. Nothing else had changed. His knife remained where he had secured it. His flint was in its pouch. The straps of his pack were fastened. He examined the wedge again. Old iron offered no explanation. Behind him, the forest was quiet. The 2 hammer blows had not repeated. The traveler considered returning to the forge. He dismissed the thought. He'd spent enough of the morning among those stones. Whatever had happened to the wedge, carrying it back again would teach him little. He placed it carefully inside his pack. Then he turned away from the hollow. Finding the road remained the sensible thing to do. He chose a direction by the morning light and began walking. The forest seemed ordinary. That unsettled him more than he expected. Snow rested undisturbed between the pines. Branches moved gently overhead. Once he found the tracks of a hare crossing his path. Nothing prevented him from leaving. The traveler continued. After some time, he stopped and looked behind him. There was no smoke, no sign of the ruined forge, only trees. He walked on. The ground gradually rose. From the top of the slope, he could see farther between the trunks. The traveler searched for anything familiar. A cut through the forest, a distant ridge, the stream he had crossed, nothing. He adjusted his pack and continued. Then iron struck iron twice. The traveler stopped. The blows came from behind him. He waited. Nothing followed. He resumed walking. Several minutes passed. Then the hammer struck twice again. The traveler did not turn. He continued through the snow. The next time it sounded, there were 3 blows. The traveler stopped. He looked back. The forest remained empty. 1 blow had accompanied him since the road. Then 2, now 3. He thought of the marks cut into the iron inside his pack. The traveler removed the wedge. 3 lines. He held it for a moment. Then he placed it back. He continued walking. The hammer did not sound again. By midday, he found water moving beneath a shelf of ice. The stream was narrow, but he recognized the direction of its flow. He crouched beside it. This might be the same water he had crossed the day before. If so, the road could not be far. For the first time that morning, the traveler felt something close to relief. He drank. Then he sat beside the stream and ate a little food. He remained there longer than he intended. The sound of moving water was ordinary. He welcomed it. Eventually, he stood. As he reached for his pack, he heard something behind him. Not the hammer. A voice, so faint that the stream nearly covered it. The traveler remained still. He listened. Nothing. He looked through the trees. No one stood there. He waited. The voice came again, closer this time. 1 word. The traveler stopped breathing. He had not heard that word since leaving home. No stranger on this mountain should have known it. He listened. The voice spoke again. Jóhann. Jóhann. Jóhann did not answer. For several moments, he remained beside the stream with 1 hand resting on his pack. Water moved beneath the ice. Nothing moved among the trees. He listened for footsteps. There were none. He listened for the hammer. It too had fallen silent. The voice had spoken his name twice. That was harder to dismiss than any sound he had heard since leaving the road. A hammer could carry through a forest. An echo could behave strangely among stone. Even the wedge, impossible as its return seemed, could leave room for doubt. Perhaps he had placed it in his coat without remembering. Perhaps exhaustion had confused one moment with another. Jóhann preferred explanations that required no ghosts. But a stranger could not speak a name he had never been given. He looked across the stream. The opposite bank rose gently into the trees. If this was the same water he had crossed before, following it should eventually bring him near the road. That remained true whether the voice had been real or not. Jóhann lifted his pack. Then he stopped. Something had changed. He lowered it again and listened. At first he heard only the stream. Then he understood. The forest was no longer completely quiet. Far behind him came the faint sound of fire. No hammer accompanied it. Jóhann turned. The sound was distant. wood settling into coals, a small crack. Then the soft rush of flame. He knew that sound. He had heard it inside the buried forge. Jóhann looked at the pack. The wedge was inside. He opened the pack and removed it. 3 short marks crossed the old iron. The fire continued somewhere among the trees. Jóhann set the wedge on a flat stone beside the stream. The fire stopped. He waited. Nothing. He picked up the wedge. The fire returned. Jóhann frowned. He put it down again. Silence. He picked it up. Fire! This time he did not repeat the test. The wedge was connected to the forge. That much he was willing to believe. How it was connected was another matter. Jóhann crouched beside the stream and studied the old piece of iron. Someone had made it. Someone had held it before him. Someone had cut those 3 marks into its edge. The thought brought him back to the voice. His name had not come from the forge. At least he did not think it had. The voice had sounded near the stream, near him. Jóhann looked toward the trees again. "Who are you?" His own voice sounded unfamiliar after so much listening. No one answered. He waited. "Why do you know my name?" The stream continued beneath the ice. Then the hammer struck once. Jóhann stood. The old pattern. 1 blow, not 2, not 3. He waited for another. None came. Then the fire faded. Jóhann looked down at the wedge. He almost laughed. Not because anything was amusing. Because he had just asked Forrest a question and found himself disappointed when it answered with a hammer. He picked up the wedge. This time, the fire did not return. Jóhann slipped the iron into his coat. He had intended to find the road and leave the mountain. That had not changed. But neither could he pretend the voice had not spoken. He crossed the stream. The opposite bank was slippery, and he used a low branch to pull himself onto firmer ground. He had taken perhaps 20 steps when the voice returned. Jóhann stopped. It did not speak his name. It spoke 3 words, quietly, clearly. "Bring it home." Jóhann remained beside the stream. Bring it home. The words had been clear. Their meaning was not. He looked back across the water. The forge lay somewhere beyond the trees. He had already carried the wedge there. He had placed it on the worn stone and walked away. If the old forge was its home, the iron had refused to remain in it. Jóhann took the wedge from his coat. 3 marks crossed its edge. He turned it in his hand, where, then? He did not expect an answer. None came. Jóhann put the wedge away and continued along the stream. He chose to follow the water rather than return to the forge. Whatever had spoken to him could speak again if it wished. He would not wander back into the hollow simply because 3 words had been whispered among the trees. The stream widened as he followed it. In places the ice had broken, exposing dark water beneath. The land gradually descended. Jóhann began recognizing the shape of the country. A ridge appeared through the trees. He had seen it before, not from the forest. From the road, he stopped. For the first time since leaving it, he knew where he was. The road should lie beyond the ridge. Jóhann quickened his pace. The hammer did not sound. Neither did the voice. By late afternoon, he reached higher ground. Through the trees below him ran a pale line beneath the snow. The road. Jóhann stood looking at it. Relief came quietly. Nothing had prevented him from finding it. No strange turn had returned him to the forge. No hammer had called him away. The road was simply there. He descended the slope. When his boots reached the old wheel scars, Jóhann stopped. He remembered walking the same road before the first hammer blow. It seemed longer ago than it was. He turned east. Home lay many days beyond the mountain. He had taken only a few steps when something occurred to him. Jóhann stopped again. Bring it home. He had assumed the words referred to the wedge. Perhaps they did. But he had also assumed that home meant the forge. That assumption had been his own. The voice had never told him to return. It had told him to bring something home. Jóhann looked east along the road, his home. He almost dismissed the thought. Why would a piece of iron from a forgotten forge belong there? He had no answer. Then he remembered something his father kept beside the hearth. An old iron tool, too worn for work, too small for splitting timber. His father had never used it. As a boy, Jóhann had once asked what it was. His father had turned the iron over in his hand before putting it back. Something from my father's time, he had said. Nothing worth keeping. Yet he had kept it. Jóhann stood motionless on the road. He reached into his coat. The wedge rested in his palm. 3 marks. For the first time, he wondered whether he had seen marks like them before. Not here. At home. He could not be certain. He had been a boy. The memory was old. But it was there. Jóhann closed his hand around the wedge. The hammer struck once, not from behind him. Jóhann turned. The forest was silent. He faced east again. The hammer struck once more. This time from somewhere ahead. This time from somewhere ahead. Jóhann followed the road east. He did not hurry. The mountain had already taken more from his legs than he cared to admit, and daylight would not last forever. The road descended gradually through the trees. For the first hour, nothing unusual happened. Jóhann welcomed that. His boots found the old wheel scars. The ridge remained behind him. The forest opened in places where wind had pushed snow from the higher ground. It felt good to travel without wondering whether every turn would return him to somewhere he had already been. The wedge remained inside his coat. Jóhann left it there. He had tested the thing enough. Whatever waited at home would either give him an answer or it would not. Until then, old iron could remain old iron. Sometime in the afternoon, the hammer struck. Once. Jóhann stopped. The sound came from somewhere ahead. He listened until it faded. Then he continued. Another blow came much later, again from ahead. There was something different about it. Jóhann could not say what. He walked several more steps before he understood. The sound was clearer, not louder. Closer was not quite the word either. There was simply less between him and the strike. On the mountain, the hammer had seemed buried beneath distance. Now he could hear the iron itself. The hard beginning of the blow, the brief ring afterward. Jóhann continued east. Toward evening, he found an abandoned shelter beside the road. 3 walls remained beneath a leaning roof. It was enough. He cleared snow from the driest corner and gathered fallen branches before the light disappeared. His fire took slowly. When it finally caught, Jóhann sat with his back against the wall and ate. For a while he watched the flame. The sound reminded him of the forge that irritated him. A fire should be allowed to sound like a fire without becoming a message. Jóhann almost smiled. He removed the wedge from his coat. Firelight moved across the old iron. 3 marks. He set it beside him. Nothing happened. No hidden fire answered. No voice spoke. No hammer struck. Jóhann ate the rest of his food. Afterward, he held his hands near the flames. He thought about his father. The memory from the road had stayed with him. An old piece of iron beside the hearth. His father's hand closing around it. Something from my father's time. Nothing worth keeping. Jóhann tried to remember its shape. He could not. Perhaps it had been a wedge. Perhaps it had been nothing like one. Memory had a way of becoming more certain when a man wanted it to mean something. Jóhann knew better than to trust it completely. But one detail remained. His father had kept the iron beside the hearth for years. Nothing worth keeping, yet never thrown away. The hammer struck. Jóhann looked toward the road. The sound had come from the east. He waited. A second blow followed, then silence. Jóhann looked at the wedge. 3 marks. He did not pick it up. Instead, he added another branch to the fire. Tomorrow he would continue home. The road would carry him out of the mountain country and toward lower ground. After that came farms, then the river, then home. For the first time since entering the forest, Jóhann could measure the distance ahead of him in places he knew. He found comfort in that. Night settled around the shelter. The fire burned lower. Jóhann wrapped himself against the cold and closed his eyes. He had nearly fallen asleep when the hammer struck again. His eyes opened. The blow was clean, clear, near enough that he could hear the metal ring afterward. Jóhann sat up. He looked down the dark road. Nothing moved. He waited for another strike. None came. Then Jóhann noticed something beside him. The wedge. He had placed it near his back. It remained there. But in the firelight, the 3 marks looked deeper than before. Jóhann reached toward them, then stopped. The marks were not deeper. Something was inside them. He lifted the wedge and held it nearer the fire. The cuts had been packed with dirt when he found it. Most of that dirt was gone now. Inside each mark was a thin line of darker metal. Not rust, not soot. A different metal had been worked into the cuts. Jóhann rubbed one with his thumb. It did not come away. The 3 marks had never simply been carved into the wedge. They had been filled. Jóhann turned the iron toward the fire. For an instant, the lines caught the light. Silver. The hammer struck. Jóhann looked east. And somewhere, far down the road, another hammer answered. Jóhann came down from the mountain country the following day. The snow became thinner as the road descended. By afternoon, he passed the first occupied farm. Smoke rose from its chimney. A dog barked from somewhere behind a fence. Ordinary sounds. Jóhann had not realized how much he missed them. He continued east. The hammer did not follow him constantly. Sometimes hours passed without a blow. But when it sounded, it always came from somewhere ahead. Once, near the river, Jóhann heard another hammer answer. A real one. A man stood beside a shed repairing an iron band around a wooden wheel. Jóhann watched him raise the hammer and strike. The sound was smaller than the one he had followed through the forest, sharper, ordinary. The man noticed him standing on the road. Jóhann nodded. The man nodded back. Neither spoke. Jóhann continued home. It took several more days. During that time, the old wedge remained in his pack. He stopped testing it. He stopped asking questions aloud. Whatever waited at the end of the road would either explain the iron or leave him with another mystery. Jóhann had grown tired of trying to force answers from things that did not speak plainly. Late one afternoon, he reached the hill above his home. The roof appeared first, then the fence, then smoke rising from the chimney. Jóhann stopped. He had imagined this moment many times during the journey. In none of those imaginings had he returned carrying a piece of iron from a buried forge. He walked down the hill. The door opened before he reached it. His father stood there. For a moment, neither man moved. Then his father smiled. "You took your time." Jóhann laughed. It was the first honest laugh he had given in days. Inside, the house smelled of smoke, dried herbs, and the stew hanging over the fire. His father asked about the road. Jóhann told him about the snow. He told him about losing the road. He did not mention the hammer, not yet. They ate. Evening settled outside. His father spoke about ordinary things. A damaged fence, a neighbor's lame horse, someone upriver who had married during the winter. Jóhann listened. The normality of it felt almost strange. Then he looked beside the hearth. The old piece of iron was still there. Jóhann stopped eating. His father noticed. "What?" Jóhann pointed. "That." His father looked toward the hearth. "What about it?" Jóhann stood and crossed the room. The iron lay where he remembered it, older than his memory, dark, worn. He picked it up. It was not a wedge. It was a short iron bar, flattened at one end. Jóhann turned it over. 3 narrow cuts crossed the side. For several moments he said nothing. His father watched him. "Where did this come from?" Jóhann asked. His father shrugged. "I told you years ago. Tell me again." The older man looked at the iron. "My father had it. And before him, I don't know." Jóhann carried it nearer the fire. The cuts caught the light. Inside each one was a thin line of darker metal. Jóhann rubbed them with his thumb. His father frowned. "What are you looking for?" Jóhann reached into his pack. He removed the wedge. His father stopped moving. Jóhann placed both pieces of iron on the table. 3 marks, 3 marks. For a long while, the only sound in the room was the fire. Then his father sat down. "Where did you find that?" "In the mountains." His father continued staring at the wedge. "Where?" "An old forge." The older man's eyes lifted. Jóhann waited. His father looked back at the 2 pieces of iron. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "My father told me a story once." Jóhann sat across from him. "What story?" His father rubbed one hand across his beard. "I was young." He looked toward the hearth. "I thought it was something told to frighten children." Jóhann said nothing. His father picked up the old iron bar. He said his grandfather carried this away from a forge in the mountains. Jóhann felt the room become very still. "Why?" His father shook his head. He never said. The hammer struck. Johann's father looked toward the door. Jóhann did not. A second blow came closer. His father slowly set the iron bar on the table. "You heard that?" Jóhann asked. The older man looked at him. "Yes." For the first time since the road began, Jóhann was not the only one listening. When the 2 pieces of iron on the table rang, not loudly, not as though they had been struck. A small, clear sound, metal answering metal. Jóhann looked down. His father whispered something. Jóhann almost did not hear him. "What did you say?" The older man stared at the marks. Then he repeated the words his father had once told him. "When the iron returns, the forge remembers." Outside the house, the hammer struck 3 times. The 3 hammer blows faded beyond the house. Jóhann and his father remained at the table. Between them lay the old iron bar and the wedge from the mountain. "What did your father mean?" Jóhann asked. "When the iron returns, the forge remembers." His father shook his head. "I don't know." Jóhann had hoped for more, a name, an explanation. Something that would make the road, the hammer, and the buried forge fit together. Instead, his father crossed to the hearth and brought back a small wooden box. Inside, wrapped in cloth, lay another piece of blackened iron. 3 narrow cuts crossed it. Silver filled each one. Jóhann stared. "My father told me never to throw it away," his father said. "He said it belonged with the other." Jóhann placed the wedge beside the 2 old pieces, 3 pieces, 3 silver marks on each. The hammer struck once. The smallest piece rang. A second blow. The old bar answered. Then a third. The wedge rang. Jóhann and his father looked at one another. Jóhann placed the pieces side by side. They did not join. They had never been parts of one tool, different shapes, different purposes, but the same marks. Jóhann finally understood something. The iron had never been asking to become whole. It had been asking to be gathered. "What will you do with them?" his father asked. Jóhann thought of the buried forge and the wedge he had once returned there, only to find it inside his coat. Nothing tonight. They wrapped the iron and placed the box beside the hearth. That night no hammer sounded. Days passed, then weeks. The iron remained silent. Eventually Jóhann stopped waiting for something to happen. When autumn approached, he decided to return to the mountain. This time, he took all 3 pieces. Jóhann found the hollow again. The forge remained beneath grass and fallen needles. He placed the box upon the worn stone and opened it. 3 pieces of iron.
He waited.
No hammer,
No fire.
no voice.
Evening approached.
Jóhann closed the box. He had expected an ending. The forge owed him none. Then something rang beneath the worn stone.
Jóhann knelt and cleared the earth.
Another piece of blackened iron appeared.
3 silver marks crossed its side.
Jóhann stared at it.
Then he laughed.
After everything the mountain had put him through, there was still another piece.
He added it to the box.
4 now.
Perhaps there were more.
Perhaps there always would be. For the first time, Jóhann did not ask where the hammer was or what the forge remembered.
He simply listened.
Only evening wind moved through the grass.
Jóhann carried the iron home.
Years passed.
Jóhann grew older, and the marked iron remained beside his hearth.
Sometimes another piece found its way there.
One came from beneath an old wall, another from a traveler
Who had heard that Jóhann kept iron marked with silver.
those bearing the 3 marks he kept.
People asked why.
Jóhann told them about the mountain road, the buried forge, the hammer, and the voice that knew his name.
Some believed him.
Some laughed.
Jóhann argued with neither.
Years later, others searched for the forge.
Some found the stone.
Some found nothing.
A few claimed they heard a hammer among the trees. They followed it.
But the sound remained distant.
Others heard it behind them.
Some heard 1 blow,
Some 2, some 3, and some heard nothing.
but the story survived.
It passed from house to house, from winter fire to winter fire, and people came to call the impossible sound by one name. The hammer that never drew near. gone, the iron remained. No one knew how many pieces had once belonged to the forge. No one knew why they had been scattered. And no one knew what the forge remembered when they returned.
Perhaps Jóhann never knew either.
But the old story says that on certain winter nights, when snow covers the mountain road and the forest grows still, a traveler may hear iron striking iron beyond the trees.
If the traveler follows,
the hammer remains distant.
if the traveler turns away,
Sometimes it follows.
and if the hammer should ever speak with a voice you know,
The old story gives only one piece of advice.
listen carefully.
The hammer may not be calling you toward itself.
It may be reminding you what
You are carrying
and somewhere in the distance,
iron strike.